Hey everyone, welcome back to Cerebral Arcade. I'm Stacy, and today we're going to be finishing up the what I think is probably the very last little bit of With Those We Love Alive, and just kind of chatting about stuff. Jagpag, hello, so good to see you. How's your day been? Yeah, I. What's funny is after last night's stream, like I was so bummed that I had to leave kind of right when I did, but like I looked up the review that a couple people had mentioned reading on Rock Paper Shotgun, and I'm like going through it, and I'm like, oh man, I actually think we probably were really close to the end, even though, like symbols wise, it seemed like maybe there was a lot more to go. So we'll see how it goes. I don't actually know. Pretty chill. Lots of apartment cleaning. Oh man, I really need to do that. Yeah, I really should clean. Maybe that'll be my tomorrow. I don't know. Um, so yeah, today I wanted to finish up the last of it. I tried really hard when I was showering this morning not to like wash off my glyphs too much, but I figured today maybe I'll try to do them on my other hand. I'll take off my hair ties, but try to do them on my other arm. And I did at least document them when they were still fresh, so I got pictures so I can post to Instagram how they all turned out. I appreciate the effort. Thanks. I appreciate you. Or alternately, I could try to redraw them, try to fit them all on the one arm, and do that with my non dominant hand. That also seemed like it might be a fun option. When I saw different people's pictures online, it looked like that seems sketch. It's a little sketch. Two arms. All right, we got it. Yeah, when I saw people's pictures online, like a lot of them were these really cool glyphs, like lined up in this like nice, perfect row down their arms and stuff. And I was just like, oh, that would have been cool. But that's absolutely not at all how I chose to do this. So, we'll see. To each their own. But yeah, so I figured we could finish the last little bit, maybe even talk about that article for folks if there are any folks in chat who have read it. I think it makes a lot of really interesting points, and a lot of the points kind of echo some of the stuff that Cecil was saying yesterday. So we can kind of talk about that. Our talent is not required to play video games. I mean, true, but it sure looks a lot cooler at the end if you have it. I don't know. Um, so yeah, so that's kind of what I figured we'd get up to. Less authentic. Yeah, well, nothing if not authentic, right? Uh, so yeah, I figured we get up to that. In the event that it takes a while, then cool, it takes all stream. And in the event it doesn't, then we can kind of sit around, process what we just experienced, and maybe just chat for a little bit afterwards. So we'll see how it goes. I don't have quite as hard of a stop tonight, but I do still have like all of the PhD writing to do always. So probably can't like hang around too late, but I'm really glad to hang out and glad to have y'all here. So let's maybe go ahead and dive in. I feel kind of bad, like particularly with Duende not being here yet, just because I'm like, so when I mentioned on the stream yesterday that we're playing this for the reading club in Fortnightly Fiction Jam, Duende is part of that and may even be the person who suggested this. I'm not sure. I'm trying to scroll up the Discord now, but there's like a lot of chat, so I don't know. But either way, oh, hi, Jeffrey and DJ. How are y'all doing? Yeah, so we're actually, Jeffrey, like just about to finish with Those We Love Alive, which is like a weird, artsy, interactive fiction, like hypertext piece. So we're probably going to be finishing that up in the next little bit, and then we'll sit around and chat for a bit. So DJ, it's really good to see you. I imagine you probably can't stay and hang out, but thanks for coming in and wishing luck. Um, so yeah, so when we left off, um, a lot had happened. We, sort of started this piece with, our like at the beginning, our parents had given us a name, but it turned out we had another name, and then 10 years disappeared, and we were sort of awakened at this scene of this like horrific monster of a queen emerging from an inky black lake, and there are kind of like sycophants surrounding the queen, and we're sort of occasionally asked to do things, but in general we're just sort of hanging out around these ruins of this monstrous world while horrible things happen around us, and we're kind of just tasked with like going about our day as we do. Hi, Tambalaya, good to see you. So like, yeah, one of the things we sort of most recently experienced, we've seen like a sort of monstrous, yay, Duende, so good to see you. I was actually just saying like, oh, I don't want to get started before you get here, so I'm glad you made it. Yeah, so like we've seen these horrific things. There was kind of this ritualized violence that's been happening, and then this like really, I think traumatic was the word used yesterday, and it kind of was, of this horrendous description of us sort of licking up the queen's juices that trailed behind her as she dragged her body past us. And that was also kind of horrifically described in great detail. And yeah, we've sort of reached a point in the game now where we don't have a lot of options for things to do. And it seems like our primary choice as a player is like, do we want to get out of bed every day and like continue going about what feels at this point like kind of a pointless ritual? Or do we want to like, I don't know, sleep through the day and just kind of like get through content as quickly as possible? And it's really interesting, I think, how the game has done a really great job of putting me as the player in a position where like I'm feeling that on a very visceral and embodied level, even though it's literally a text game. Sounds a bit Lovecraftian. Yeah, it kind of is. So we talked a lot yesterday about how both the world and the creatures are pretty under-described, and so it does, kind of in a Lovecraftian way, leave you with a lot of room for your imagination to latch on to one or two words and like kind of run with them and sort of imagine like the most horrific thing you can. So, and what's also interesting about that is that in describing the queen, for example, we as the player had the option to sort of select different parts of her body. Like, does she have the horns of a stag or the horns of a ram, or eyes like snakes for eyes and stuff like that? So so that's also kind of a cool thing. We talked a little bit yesterday about how when things like that are either generative or sort of left to the player in that way, this game is using that to foster a sense of role play. And the fact that it hasn't really had super systemic effects so far really also feels like it's leaning into like, no, this is your experience, and you are kind of personalizing that to yourself. So pretty cool so far. I actually, like I said, I really do get the impression there might not be very much of the game left. So with that, I guess I will just go ahead and dive back in. Let me move y'all over. And okay. So we have just woken up in our bed. There's a chest under our bed, which contains these cool glyphs that we talked a bit about yesterday. And yeah, and this is kind of what I mean, where I'm like, cool, we can like exit our bedroom and walk around. Yeah, so one day I was actually saying I tried really hard in the shower this morning to keep them on, and left to chat the decision as to whether I should try to continue on the like. Try to redraw them on my clean arm or just do the remaining symbols on this arm. I did manage to document these ones yesterday, so we would have good, fresh pictures that I could post later. Um, and the verdict from chat was to just continue on the left arm and get like pictures of both. So we'll do that. I'm definitely right-handed, so the rest of them will be drawn on with my non-dominant hand. So that's gonna be fun. So we'll see. Okay, so we've just woken up. We have the option to continue sleeping or kind of continue with our daily ritual. I think what I'll do, since we have folks who weren't able to join yesterday, is we'll go through the daily ritual once, and then like I'm kind of inclined to just start sleeping through our days. But let's see how this plays out. So back in the palace courtyard, we have our balcony. Death jungle chokes the land to the north. To the south, ashen wasteland. That dead person is sitting on the balcony swinging their legs. This person is like intermittently there and not. We lean on the railing, and the telescope that we made is mounted nearby. So we can kind of look off into the distance. Feral machine things buzz through the canopy. Barrow Queen is stalking through the hills. And yeah, what's interesting is yesterday I didn't really comment on this or feel it particularly because the descriptions were all so kind of like contained. But this little area here, as I come back to it today, it feels very like highlighting the lack of things we can do. Like it's like coming to the balcony and there's really nothing we can do except stare at things off in the distance. And like a lot of the passages actually are like that, where you know, we can kind of go and observe other things or people doing stuff. Like, you know, we get different descriptions of what the hounds are up to, but like we as the player don't have a ton. Makes sense. Cool. So the whip of the Skull Empress hangs above the vacant throne. This is our whip that we made of the bones of a rival tyrant and nymph gut. Throne, glossy white wood swarming with termites, stained with Empress effluvia, deep gouges in the arms. And her portrait, majestic stag horns, her mantle of moth fur, her eyes burning with cold fire. Okay. So we can go back to our chambers, but I'm gonna go through the ritual. Garden sprawls. Glass flowers on iron stalks, canopy of leaf bone, statues sunk into the earth. Some carved of stone from this century, others the husks of machines from beyond your reckoning. It is easier for gardeners to call the machines statues, but they were no aesthetic object. Okay, we can head down to the lake. Dead brown leaves cover inky black lake. We'll do our meditations. We'll hold our breath twice. Okay. Good. We're gonna head back to the palace, go through our workshop. Vials of melter, magnifying lens, meltless gloves, scarred work table. The melter has the power to sculpt metal and stone with your fingers. And yeah, and this is also an area where we previously had things to do, and we're just kind of running out of stuff to do in our days, which I think, you know, again, is kind of this. I read it as sort of a commentary on things becoming more and more pointless as we're sort of experiencing all of these horrific things and trauma. And then our last thing here, the city is through a vast archway hanging with vines. Streets are narrow, winding, maze-like. Ropes span between buildings like enormous spider webs blanketing the city. The temple is this way, across the dry canal. The dream distillery has a gruesome pull for you. This alley leads to a dead end. The stone is stained with smog and acid rain. A puddle of green slime is here. And these are all areas where so far we really haven't had actions we could take in any of them. They're just kind of described. Okay, the temple, we've had some stuff. A censer burns, filling the temple with smoke. That childhood smell of spices, so mystical, now reminds you of any kitchen. And we do kind of keep having these like interspersed little moments of things from our childhood. You know, we got a letter from our parents that we, as players, didn't really read and just kind of tossed to the wind, I think. A row of jars sits behind curtains. Ancient hands suspended in green fluid, covered in sigils, vertical columns of ink. And the gods derive power from silence. Duende says, been thinking about tabletop RPG design today, and it'd be fun to sketch a quick system based on what's presented so far. Ooh, that would be fun. Yeah, what sorts of things would you do in that system? Okay, let's go wander to the Dream Distillery. This place creeps me out. Pale, shriveled humans sleep forever on the floor. Pipes run from their heads into iron barrels. This batch has a vivid white color. You take a sip. Yep, a living, breathing terroir of flesh. Gross. A bouquet of drowning, a refined flavor of charity, and an aftertaste of surveillance. I will cheers to that. Gruesome. Okay. So back in our chambers. And that's really it. So it's kind of like, yeah, we're sort of just waiting at this point for, seems like a tree of dead ends. It totally is so far, Jeffrey. So far, it's kind of been like we go through this sort of like cadence of looking at stuff. And I, being the completionist player I am, have been forcing us to explore these paths each time. But as we've gone through, it has felt less and less useful to do so. So like each thing that moves the story forward has been literally just like a reaction kind of thing. Like we go to sleep and we wake up and something new has happened, and so we're now like being asked to make something for the queen, and then we like get excited as players to be like, oh cool, I have a job, I have something to do. So we go down to the workshop and we make the thing, and then it's kind of like back to the routine, and there are these like really viscerally described things, and then it's kind of back to stuff we've already done and already seen. And so does the order in which you do things matter at all? So I very intentionally have not like opened this up and looked at how it works, which we totally could if we wanted to. But I suspect not. I actually suspect it's literally designed aesthetically for this to be the experience where like over time we went from being kind of excited to explore the world to now just kind of laying around sleeping constantly and like waiting to do the job. So we just slept, and usually sleeping is a thing that might change the state of the world. So the loop so far has kind of been sleep, okay, and then quickly go and look and see if anything changed while we were asleep. And it actually looks like in this case something has. So the palace courtyard, it rained while we were asleep. Awesome. So let's check it out. Hot, humid rain flooding downhill into the city. Your skin feels sticky. And like that to me, I think is a very intentional aesthetic experience where we woke up, we got really excited that something was different. Something has changed in this routine that we're sort of being asked to participate in and being, you know, kind of bored by. And so we got excited, something had changed. Is there something to do? Is there something for us to do to be useful, to like give anything to this world? And like, no, still nothing. So, okay. we can kind of quickly go through and see if anything has changed here. But it's like, yeah, it looks like it's all sort of the same. And yeah, all right. And so now this dead person does kind of keep moving around. And at first, I think we were all kind of like, oh, is that a puzzle? Is there something we need to do with the dead person? But it kind of seems like not. It kind of seems like the dead person just moves around sometimes. And so things are a little different, but not in a way that's systemically meaningful, which I think is maybe a stand-in for like not in a way that's meaningful. And Cecil yesterday made a really good point in chat that it does sort of parallel like the experience of going through major trauma and then like kind of turning and going about your day and nothing really, it feels very pointless. Like everything is kind of like, wow, is there going to be something big to jolt me out of this? And so far, not really. And so, yeah, we'll kind of peek back in. Looks like nothing has changed. But I mean, I would point out that this is probably what, like our 10th or so loop through this. And it's like each time I, as a player, am inclined to click on fewer and fewer things. So it's like there's a part of me that just kind of wants to check to see if anything is different. And then once I'm sort of satisfied that it's not, it's like, yeah, okay, back to sleep. Okay, so, and this is cool because the black background, I think, is meant to symbolize that that this is happening in our sleep. So, when you were very young, it was popular among the rich to distill the dreams of children. This practice is no longer in vogue, but back then, every month or so, some children would be taken. One night, your mother stood over the stove and crumbled leaves into a cup of hot water. She stirred and stirred until it was dark green. She gave you the cup. You drank it because she was your mother. Very dark, okay. That night, you fell into a horrible fever. You sweated until it felt like strings threaded with broken glass were being pulled through your pores. You hallucinated. You fried. You could see nothing but the inside of your own skull. When you woke up, you could no longer dream. In one night, it felt like you had dreamt all the dreams of a lifetime. It felt like an eternity of fire, like what should have come slowly, gently, unfolding delicately, at the whirling dance of your years, had instead been accelerated at a ruinous speed, burning away. Away is a really interesting link anchor there. Lay awake for a long time. So this is cool because this is that thing I was kind of talking about yesterday with the sort of under-described and kind of ambiguous language. Like, I mentally had thought of this as perhaps a dream, but it like the language is really ambiguous. And then when it comes up with the link of lay awake for a long time, you're like, oh no, I'm just thinking this, probably. Okay, so we need to reapply our hormones, which is interesting because like this is also another kind of ritual that we're just sort of taking part in and doing. And so it's like we have to do this every few days, and it's having a ritual that is taking place at a level that's a little bit higher removed from kind of the daily ritual is like actually really emphasizing how repetitive it all is. So yeah, so doing the thing again where I'm like, all right, yeah, we'll look around. The dead person is back on the balcony. The hounds are napping. My hound is napping too. Yep. Cool. Nothing really to do. And again, it's like things really only happen when we sleep. So let's just sleep. Okay. Yeah, and nothing. And so now, like at this point, as a player, I'm like questioning whether it's worth it to even get out of bed because like, yeah, as a player, there's only so many times, I guess, that I'm willing to kind of go through the same set of actions when I know that the content is gated by how many times I've slept. So like, I'm kind of like, oh, I mean, there's always that little voice in the back of my head that's like, no, but maybe that's not what's gating it. Maybe there is something different. So I'm going to leave it to you, chat. Do you want to sleep through our days, or do you want to keep getting up and trying to do the routine, looking around? And we can, we can do the routine in the full depth that we've done it, or we can do the routine kind of in the quick way that I've done it the last couple of rounds. But what are y'all feeling? Yeah, let me know. I'm going to sleep through this day, and then we'll see. You pour endless things into the dark left by your dreamlessness. None of them can replace the dreams. It's like trying to create air just by thinking about it. Something so invisible and ethereal as to resemble thought itself. Yeah, so I was talking also about, is the crafting open? We can go and check out the workshop, but so far when we've been to the workshop, we haven't had anything to do there. So I was mentioning yesterday the paper that I wrote about link aesthetics. One thing that we didn't touch on in that paper is something like this, where the multiple sentences are the same link, which like as a player, it's functionally the same as something like this, where there is one link on the screen that takes you to the next passage, but it feels different. It feels much more like a click to move forward sort of situation, where I have literally 0 sense for what's going to be on the other side of the link. And I don't know, like functionally to me, it feels the same as just like a next button or something, which we've had things that also functionally feel like next buttons on other passages. So it feels like a really interesting aesthetic choice. I'm not entirely sure what to make of it, but it's different and we noticed. Okay. None of them can replace the dreams. It's like trying to create air with your imagination, something so invisible and ethereal as to resemble thought itself. But dreams are physical as blood and bone. Have the links been the only text decoration? Yes, they have. And we've had 2 types of links, like one that's just kind of more of like a navigational link, and then cycling links, where the game has leaned into those for crafting and for these kind of role play moments of, like I was saying before, what sorts of horns does the queen have and stuff like that. So yeah, we can head down to the workshop, but again, yeah, nothing really for us to do since we have made the last couple of things, both of which were effectively somebody just coming to us and saying, hey, you have to make something. So it's a combination of function and emphasis. Yes, exactly. And we talked a bit yesterday about how it also does use them for expectation setting. So we talked a lot about this screen in particular, where your chambers, by virtue of it being different from the other links, both in terms of where it is on the screen, the fact that it's the only one that starts a sentence, the fact that it's the only one that's 2 words, the fact that it visually stands out, it feels more like it feels separate from the others in a way that to an experienced player sort of signals this one is probably your step forward, where these others are sort of asides or things like that. And we've been kind of talking throughout about different individual moments of links and the kinds of expectations that they're building in the mind of the player, and then what we see on the other side and how those things kind of match up to form meaning. Yeah, I'll just kind of do a quick look around, but it's kind of seeming like no. I'm literally just picking stuff at random, because like what's the point in anything? Such an interesting like role play thing. We'll just sleep some more. Yeah, I'm gonna do it again. Just didn't even get out of bed. Yeah, kind of go and look. Yeah, it's all all kind of the same. The rain thing was interesting, right? Because that really only happened once. It seems like it's probably like a random chance to happen, maybe. Nothing about that felt particularly specific to that point in the story, other than like that feeling that we had, right? Of like, oh man, there's something to do. Oh no, just kidding. No, there's not. That disappointment almost, it was like used really well. So, all right, keep sleeping. Visitors from beyond the city, and visitors is so exciting here. A priestess from the temple of the 17 goddesses, her raiments sewn with bright, jagged minerals that pulsate at the slightest change in light. An ambassador from the west in her cloak of spider feathers and her ceremonial gas mask. Eek. And your friend, witch green rags, vials of ectoplasm hanging at her side, her above all things. Ooh, wow. So I genuinely don't know what I want to click on here. All of these feel like descriptive links, so I think it's probably safe to click them without moving forward, but let's check them out. Goddesses of anomaly and aberration, their domain is everything not. Their earthly manifestations are permanently burning origami angels. Okay, fascinating. What a good link there. Okay, let's check out the gas mask. I'm almost afraid to click on this for what we're gonna get. Okay, just literally a description of the gas mask. Black with gold trim, a slender hose hanging with gold filter obsidian eyes. Wasteland chic. Okay. And your friend. I would like to hear more about my friend. You look at her and she looks at you, then she looks away. The music has stopped also. Mercury of the soul. Each sample has its own wildness, its own tendency to warping. Just looking makes you dizzy. Okay, her above all things. Her face was a scar palette. Her hair was a tar ballet. The palette and ballet duality there is really interesting. Okay. Her face is healed. Her hair is combed tonight. Whoa. Okay. She glides past. More media res there, yeah. The impulse to stay something darts up your throat like a fish up a waterfall. Wow, that's really evocative. And falls down again. Really good. Oh, I wish I hadn't clicked forward. That was a really good use, like across all of that, of like replacement links where most of the text on the screen stays static, and then you click the link and it fills in with additional text. It was a really effective way to sort of like communicate that I was performing those actions and making them so. Yeah, that was really, really good. Okay. Always down, always silent. Nothing leaves the fortress of your mouth. Also really interesting from a pacing perspective. Sorry. Do they die on the teeth? Do they suffocate in the throat? Or maybe no words ever existed. It's just diluted air rising and falling. She is talking to someone. Oh, so good on falling, and she is talking to someone. And falling being like, again, like that ambiguity of language of like, is that falling like in love or falling like crestfallen, you know? You disappear. Oh, really good. Okay. And we're back in the throne room. The hounds growl low and rare. The whip of the Skull Empress hangs above the vacant throne along with her portrait. Yeah, and I want to click on these because I'm here. Just make sure. But yeah, the hounds are chained to the throne. They strain at the sight of you. Yeah, was to is. Good point. Okay. Yeah, and then like now, where I'm like, well, after that, what do I even do? Like, okay. Sort of just leaves me feeling as a player like a bit uh, confused, bewildered, like floating, directionless. Uh, I don't know. Do I just randomly go about stuff, or do I just like say fuck it and go back to bed? Um, let's meditate. That's what we're gonna do. Do we think that our character's position is based on self-sacrifice and achievement? Did she give up what she wanted to achieve her way here, or is this what she wanted? That's a really good question. I don't know that I know the answer to that. Um, I mean, I definitely am feeling themes of self-sacrifice running through this, right? Like, there's definitely this sort of like this vague sense that I have disappointed my parents, like this vague sense that that I had a life before this, but honestly, like none of that feels in any way like it matters, because the imagery that I'm getting here is so, you know, kind of horrific, with like tubes coming out of heads that I'm drinking, and, you know, licking up of juices left in a trail behind like a monster queen that everyone is sort of focused on. And um, yeah, it's like, and there definitely is something that feels very like I am feeling more and more pathetic as a like projected character, um, because yeah, like, and I do think that sort of jives with themes of self-sacrifice. There's definitely this feeling of you know, I'm writing glyphs up my arm, and I'm pressing glyphs into my body at this regular cadence, and uh, doing horrific things, and like for what? Kind of just to be useful, um, or like do something. And I I feel like that feeling is intentional on the part of the creator. I love this meditation screen. It's so good. Okay. Okay. We have meditated. Let's go back to the palace and let's sleep. When you left, you were both so angry, so ugly with bitterness. Yeah, actually, so, and just to call out, like that did deviate from the pattern a little bit too, in as much as normally we sleep and then stuff happens, and then when we're done with stuff happening, we're often returned back to our chambers where we have the option to just kind of go back to sleep. This one, and a couple of the others have as well, leave us in a different location from our bedroom. So then there is sort of the like, well, what do I do now? My routine is disrupted, and now it's kind of the conscious, something has jolted me out of like my routine, especially if I'm just mashing sleep all the time. So now, like, yeah, maybe I'll give a cursory exploration the to the world, sort of go back to my routine, as it were, or my ritual. But like, none of that feels it almost always just kind of feels like, well, I mostly just want to maybe take a little bit of a breather before I get back to sleep and things are horrible again. So yeah, I don't know. When you left, you were both so angry, so ugly with bitterness. It drowns. Shame taught the ocean everything it knows. Draw a sigil of shame. Okay, what does our shame sigil look like, chat? And again, like this thing of I'm literally also changing my body for the game. Like, I'm literally disfiguring myself. Yeah, it's pretty powerful. Um, yeah, shame is so abstract. I feel like a lot of the things we've done so far have sort of relied on iconography, and yeah, that's a good one. that's a good one. Duende, it feels very like a lack. Also, I'm doing this with my non-dominant hand, so this is going to turn out so janky. Okay. Um, okay. No lie, that might be the best one yet. It probably says something. Okay, so here's our next sigil. All right. So we're at 5 now. Certain days came to represent those bad times. They visited you, and that day holds all the days in its hands, as the tip of a spear carries the weight of the entire spear. Ooh, that's really interesting. Okay. And so yeah, so like that on this screen that day, uh, like yeah, it's doing that thing that we had talked about before, where it's both really visually calling it out, which also as a player sort of raises that momentary question of, oh gosh, what happened that day? But I also sort of expect that when I click on this, it's going to take me to that day and we'll find out about it. But it does sort of add like a gravitas that is communicating that my character has a lot of stuff built up about that day. So let's find out what happened. You were with her that day, holding her hand tighter and tighter as the yelling got louder. Okay, so we can be holding her hand as she held your hand. Ooh, ooh. What an interesting cycling link that is really sort of, gosh, just pointing out how powerful phrasing is. Like, I don't know, I feel like parts of this game really are kind of a love letter to language, really. Okay, so were we holding her hand or was she holding ours? I'm kind of inclined to say she was holding our hand. And then do we think it was a cold day or a hot day? So there's a part of me that I don't know if this, like, I don't think this is systemically going to matter, right? So, like, as a player, because I don't think systemically it's going to matter, I'm like, oh, I want to sort of frame this memory in a warmer way in which I felt loved. So I'll say she was holding my hand, and I'll say it was a hot day. And what's funny is you could equally make that argument for like any of the other choices. You could sort of say like, oh, it was a cold day, so we were, you know, she was holding my hand and we were cozy, or like, oh, it was a cold day, so I, you know, was comforting her or holding her hand because of it. And so it's like it really, yeah, on a systemic level, like really doesn't matter, and all it's really doing is allowing me as a player to build up the kind of role play that I want this to be about. Hot like anger, cold like shunning, exactly. Like it could be literally the exact opposite meaning as well. So like, yeah, it's really leaning into not just ambiguity in language itself, and not just the underspecifiedness of it, but also like the ambiguity of metaphor too. So yeah, okay. Hard to remember, isn't it? The feelings were hot and cold, fluxing so fast and intense, it seemed like you would crack and split, and they color that day like water damage on a painting. And yeah, it's interesting too, because like this feels like it's commenting on the fact that that even was a choice that we as a player made, where like it feels like the fact that the game presented us with a choice, it's now commenting on that and saying, yeah, it's, isn't it weird we couldn't even remember? Very cool moment. Okay, that day. Every day is damage. Ooh, I love a wall of links. Okay. So, yeah, like this is a moment where As a player, I'm feeling a little bit of like the pull toward the meta, where I'm like, oh gosh, okay, these up to now, the game has set my expectation that it doesn't matter what I click on from a systemic perspective. I'm going to see the same content no matter what. Um, so like, yeah, no escaping the statement. Exactly. And so this feels like, which part of the statement do I want to focus on? Uh, Prior couple links were about the day, yeah. Um, and so it's interesting because I think uh, if this were presented early in the game, I would probably be, I would think of it as a puzzle, and I would be trying to game it, you know, for lack of a better word. And with this, I don't feel that impulse. I feel it more like what do I want to dwell on? Like which thing, you know, do I feel that with? So I'm gonna choose day because Jeffrey is right that the prior couple links were about the day. Um, but yeah, like okay, cool. So uh yeah, so you sort of think like, okay, so that just disappeared, so probably all these are going to disappear. And my mind immediately starts thinking about the permutations. What if I'd clicked on something else? Everyday damage, day is damage, every day is. Uh, so yeah, like it's interesting. It's like my mind just instantaneously saw all of the permutations of that, and they all were, uh, yeah, kind of elegiac, I guess. Don't have anything to add, but was up like grading so that I would tune in and lurk a bit. Hi, Biostats, so good to have you. Yeah, this is what we do. We just we play games and way overanalyze them, but it's a lot of fun. So every is, and that's it. Okay, and then we just return. And we didn't sort of get the dark to light transition that we have previously. So there's also now sort of set up this ambiguity of like, were we sleeping? Was that at night? Like that just was that just kind of a continuation of our previous thoughts? Um, okay, yeah. Every time the screen turns pink, it's like, oh, all right, what now? Okay. The Empress is naked in her bath of worms. She is thinking. They pick her bones clean. How thoughtful. She thinks, make me a new hand. Yeah, and it's been set up previously that she's kind of like insectian, and when she thinks things, people around her respond. Her thoughts linger like the frog of a kiss on your brain. Under the worms, you see the Bonero in her left hand. I don't know what that is. Some congenital malady of the skull empresses, a hex from some nemesis. It doesn't matter. You feel strange. Oh, bone rot. Wow, my brain just like didn't process that. Under the worms, you see bone rot in her left hand. Okay. You imagine yourself making more and more things for the Empress of increasing intimacy until you are making her bones themselves, and then the individual components of her soul. Ooh. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is like we've felt most useful so far when making things to give to the Empress, and none of them have been particularly commented upon, or like we've received very little for actually doing it, other than the gratification of having something to do in an otherwise horrific and tedious situation. Until she is finally replaced by that which came from your hand alone. Oof. Oof. Yeah, so to talk about that self-sacrifice, this is now feeling a lot more, I don't know, sort of like toxic and controlling, I guess. So yeah, the thing that we'll make, it will be made from Sanguine Claws, diamond with platinum joints, tortured ectoplasm, Yeah, it's the Theseus ship dilemma. Exactly. It absolutely feels that way. And, okay, so, and that's a really interesting point too, because we've been sort of enduring this like string of what feels really horrific. We've been um, literally like changing our bodies to uh, conform to what the game wants of us. And at the same time, we've been dictating what the queen is, what she looks like, what weapon she uses, what her attire is, and now literally like replacing her bones, right? And like her self. And what's interesting is like that didn't really occur to me as a thing we were doing until like it kind of hit me over the head with it here. So yeah, and so it's kind of like, all right, what do we give her? And like she keeps asking us to do it. Does that make it better, right? Like this is clearly sort of like bad for everyone. Why are we doing this? Okay. Each diamond comes from a different city state, extinct city states. You melt them together like sculpting water. And set with a giant ruby, veined with bright copper strands of hair, fitted with obsidian nails. Yeah, long, sharp nails reflecting like hard ink, cut from the foot of a volcano at the heart of the ash waste, where even the sky-hungry obelisks are drowned to tips like a bench to sit on. Perfect. Ooh, perfect feels like really gross here. So, okay, perfect. A hand of diamond with platinum joints fitted with obsidian nails. The agent takes it away. Okay. And yeah, we're back in our workshop. Where there's a dead person under the table. Completely uncommented upon and not interactable, just there. Yeah. Yep, and we've definitely hit a point where I'm like, I'm not sure. Yeah, hey, what up? Just hanging out here, don't mind me. Exactly. And I love how like when the dead person is on the balcony, they're just like kicking their feet. Like I sort of picture like a kid, you know, sits on like a stool that's too high, just swinging their legs. Yeah. Yeah, and so it's so interesting, right? Because I think with a work like this, there's always the impulse to kind of be like, well, what does it mean? And and so like there's definitely a couple of different allegories that feel like they're running through here. There's kind of the, you know, the sort of like the obvious like trans allegory stuff that's happening, the kind of like toxic relationship stuff. It's unclear to me at this point in the work how overtly they are trying to draw a parallel between the toxic relationship with my friend and like whatever is the relationship between me and the queen. There's kind of this like, yeah, this commentary on like us, you know, kind of sycophant culture. Uh, yeah, there's a lot going on in this work, for sure. All right, let's sleep that off. You're walking down the hall when you see her. She stops and stares, and here, alone in the cool, shadowed corner of the palace, there's no longer any pretense that you do not know each other. And she speaks. The last time I saw you, you were miserable, a wreck, a horrible creature of gender. Yeah, let's say a wreck. Yes. I hope to see you again now that things are different. Ooh, and the kind of... Yeah, so also very interesting without any kind of conversational tags here. Um, this conversation could be had either way. Like it could be, uh, that I said a rec and the friend said yes, or it could be, you know, the other way around. Um, Hope is a shameful thing. Her lips twisted into a smile. You remember how good it felt to hate the world together. Before everything so bitter and trapped, when it was a clean, pure hate moving you forward, out of the city, away from the people who hurt you. She's saying something. They could have agreed to a different thing. Yeah, well, and like the conversation could have happened such that I said yes or that she said yes, and then the link feels like it's mine because I'm clicking on it, but because it has sort of set up the expectation that narration also happens in links, like it that comment felt like it could have come from either person. So yeah, okay. So out of the city and away from the people that hurt either me or her. Which one of us was hurt? Let's say me. I mean, I'm feeling, I don't know, very self-sacrificing. She's saying something. Are things different now? And then we have some choices. You'll have to choose, chat. What happened then will never happen again. Nothing has changed, or I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting. Like, it doesn't feel like a choice. You were saying it feels like nothing is changing. That's true. I was saying that. I'm sorry, but I'm glad you see clearly what kind of place this is. Oof. Okay. Silence. That's a nice dress, she says. Pride warms you as if the summer sun had melted through the cold marble. I have to go show some asshole all the glorious myriad benefits of ectoplasm, but can we meet tomorrow? That would be nice. And then she's gone and you are alone, like one of the statues had spoken to you and returned to silence. Okay, we are alone. And yeah, this is a moment now where we had mentioned yesterday, like, that the title was very interesting, considering at that point we had rejected our family and we were kind of alone in this horrific place. And now we're contemplating on with those we love alive, right? Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about how this conversation has the clearest and most relatable writing. That is a really, really good point. Yeah, it was not flowery. It was ambiguous in particular ways, but not in the sort of like read a ton of like, as a player, I wasn't trying to read in meaning and understand what was literally happening. There was a bit of trying to, fill in details about like what our relationship might be or might have been or whatever, but I wasn't sitting there going like, wait, like what is literally happening right now? So yeah, kind of an interesting thing. Okay, let's just head back to sleep. Lying on a garden bench, her vials of ectoplasm are gone, replaced by a bag of hard, precious things. She shows you one of the coins. I think this is worth like 50 of those fried rolls. Remember the rolls? The ones you ate every day for a while? You love that shit. Okay, and we can say, okay, get me 50 rolls, or I'm kind of overeating, kind of over having a corporeal body. Wow. Uh, yeah, I don't really know what to make of this choice. Because neither of them are kind of what I want, right? Where like, as I'm sitting here, commenting on how it feels like I'm like toxically engaged with the queen and enforcing my will on her in a way that feels really gross. The flippancy of, okay, get me 50 rolls feels so, like, I don't know, commanding in a way that, like, I don't want my character to be that. But at the same time, I'm kind of over having a body also feels like a bit like dramatic teenager in a way that I don't want my character to be either. And so far, uh, I haven't developed enough of a roleplay identification with the character, I guess, even though I have very deeply in certain ways. But I don't feel like I am in a place to say like, oh, this character would say this. Um, so yeah, I guess I just go with the first one then. And even still, I'm like, it probably doesn't matter. Like from a systemic level, I also could just as easily say one or the other, but like I care deeply. So yeah, I don't know. I've never seen anyone explode before, so that would be pretty fun. Yeah, and what's interesting is like I also didn't really read that as like a an equally self-destructive choice, I guess. And then this text kind of confirms for me that it was. All right, time passes in a very nice way. Huh. Okay, so this is the second, at least that I recall. It might have been more than that. Sort of thing where even though we've experienced and tried to, oh gosh, okay, I just skipped something and I don't think I can go back. No, that's a bummer. Even though I have like really tried to push things forward in time, this is like the second explicit mention of like time skipping forward, basically. And the first time, yeah, it did feel almost like traumatic is too strong a word, but it had like a negative slant, where this one is, in a nice way. And like the language of this piece has shown us that if the author wanted to convey a nice way by showing rather than just kind of saying a nice way, she absolutely could, right? And so it's kind of that like, wow, I'm clearly, as a character, I'm reading into this, I'm clearly depressed to the point where I can note these like horrific things in a sort of matter of fact way, I guess. Like the ritual hunt was pretty both matter of fact and like horrible. And then the upper end of that is just like, yeah, it was nice. After a while, we both go silent. It still hurts, doesn't it? Oof, okay. These things don't just go away. Or yes. No, I didn't mind being physically mutilated as a child at all. What are you talking about? Yeah, man. So, yeah, that's another example of this piece using links to give us information. And where it's like, it gives you the information, but I don't have to say it. But like, it's in my mental model as a player now. Yeah, so I guess we'll go with that. She leans close. Her breath smells like sweet salt. You can see the healed scars on her face, like faded borders on a land run over by sand. What they did to me on the outside, they did to you on the inside. We're the same, separated from the world. Yeah, and again, chasm people. Oof. Are you a chasm person? Are we a chasm person, chat? Oh my gosh. Yes, no, or I don't know. Telltale choice design would say that literally every person is going to answer, I don't know. Because if you present people with a, you're like, yep. Because if you present people with a hard answer or a waffly, I don't want to make this choice, 9 times out of 10, they will take the waffle answer. Um, you're like, yeah, definitely a chasm person. Okay, we'll be a chasm person. Draw the sigil of your relationship with the chasm. Okay. Gosh, no idea what that looks like. Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I am like, and what's interesting is yesterday we drew these very, uh, what is the sigil of your relationship? Yeah, I have no idea. Hello, I live in a chasm. It's very nice here. It doesn't get too hot, and there's a nice breeze sometimes. Um, so yeah, so everything that we drew yesterday was pretty literal in its iconography, and it feels like things today. I'm not sure if it is the mood we're in today versus the mood we're in yesterday, the folks we have in chat today versus what we had yesterday, or like a progression of the kinds of things it's asking us to draw. But I feel a pull toward things that are more abstract today. Uh, and so I'm gonna draw like just kind of two lines that sort of come down like this. And like kind of intention, like that's basically kind of drawing an abstraction of the chasm without committing to what my relationship with it is, because I don't know. And yeah, okay, going for it. Like, are you in the chasm, out of it, above it, just traveling through? Well, exactly. I have no idea. I have no idea which of those things we are. Um, oh, wow, you're doing this on your arms. Yeah, the game asks you to. The game, when it starts, says, like, grab a Sharpie, you're going to be drawing things on your body. So, and then the first couple of prompts that it gives you and asks you, it says, like, draw on your arm this thing. Um, so, yeah, we're almost, I think, done with our sigils. And a lot of folks, how they discovered this game actually was pictures that people had posted of the sigils they drew on their arms. A true chasm person probably gets in and out of the chasm with regularity. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess that's true. If you really are a chasm person, you're probably not trapped in the chasm, right? Um, hmm. Grass flowers on iron stalks, canopy of leaf bone. We are down at the lake. Let's meditate while we're here. What's interesting to me is how often as a player, I'm like, just kind of for pacing's sake, I don't want to just like jump back to sleep and then like jump right back in this. But I also know there's not really much to do in the other locations. So yeah, like the meditation, like at the beginning, we would do the meditation because it was like, oh, well, is something in the game going to change because we've meditated? And now it's like, we know that's not going to happen. But I'm still choosing to do it as a player because I'm kind of like electing my own pacing through this story, which is so weird and very cool. Meant that somewhat flippantly, not sure I stand by that as a sincere analysis. Um, Yeah, I don't know. I think it is a perfectly valid analysis. I think though there's also an equally valid analysis that a chasm person could be a person who falls into the chasm and then internalizes the fact that they're down there as part of their identity. And either is probably equally valid, and honestly, either probably applies to this story equally well. So, uh, yeah, we'll hit our chambers. Go ahead. I'm like the fact that the chest is there, just like I don't know. I feel the need to keep clicking it just to kind of check it, I guess. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed all game. Like, it probably would have if we had chosen to put the letter from our parents into the chest instead of throwing it to the wind. But I don't know. It's like I still want to check it because it's there. Yeah, interesting. A long time ago, she caught you bashing your head on the wall, the red stain getting bigger and bigger. Holy shit. She held you until the feeling passed. The feeling passed. The garden is beautiful tonight, but somehow this is all you can think of. She sees it in your face. Haze. I'm okay. I can't stop thinking about it. You shouldn't have to deal with my shit. Let's just have a good time. Ugh. Ugh. Yeah. Is it possible to skip the application of hormones? Not advocating for that, just wondering if that was a choice. It is, I think, technically a choice, yeah. It's not one that I've taken yet, and I think part of that is the language that's used for it, which is like, it's time to do this. Like, it's very direct. But yeah, it's a good point. What's interesting is that, yeah, at no point have I felt the urge to not take it. And like, I'm actually examining that right now and going like, huh, that's kind of weird. Like, it didn't even occur to me to not, like, even in like a sort of counterplay way, which like I very much am a person that pokes at structure and system things when I play, interactive fiction, particularly hypertext, and like, it didn't even occur to me. So like, yeah, that's very interesting. I was wondering that too. Yeah, y'all are more counterplay than I am, maybe. Like, that's yeah, so interesting. If it comes up again, we can try if that's what we want. I feel icky and weird about that. Like, I don't know why, but yeah. Okay. So, yeah, this is kind of another one of those interesting things where I'm like, I like, the character I want to be is not the character I am, and because of that, I don't know which choice to pick. It's like, and the character that I am is not even a character that I can like play from their perspective either. It's like all of these choices feel equally valid to that character, and none of them are choices that I want, which I wasn't here for the beginning, so I wonder if you were conditioned into it. I mean, yeah, kind of. And also, it came at a time and comes at a time still where like there's not really anything else to do. So you do it because it's like something different that you can do. And now we're far enough into the game where I think we've like figured out the structure, and we've figured out that things advance in a reactive way. Like, things advance when we sleep and we just wait for stuff to happen to us. So now there's less of an impulse toward, oh man, this is just something to do. Yeah, and so yeah, that's also kind of a like an interesting point. Yeah, I guess I go with I'm okay, which is funny. It's not a choice I want because it feels too dismissive and deflective, but like, this feels too traumatized, and this one feels too like angry, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It's so interesting having this much difficulty making a choice that I know doesn't have a systemic impact. Okay. Yeah. She puts her hand on your shoulder. When the thoughts are really bad, there's something that really helps me. So back to picking the non-answer. Exactly. 5 minutes later, you're in the workshop, and she's holding a glass dropper full of green fluid. She squirts the fluid inside beads of melter, like shards of emerald floating in dewdrops. Trust me, this is the purest way to do it. A drop of melter lands on her skin. It disappears. Now you. The drop falls through your body. You feel radiant. She sinks into the corner. Her dark hair covers her face, and she tries to blow it away, finally surrendering with hysterical laughter, becoming hysterical laughter, leaking hysterical laughter, enshrining hysterical laughter. Yeah, I want to say becoming, I think, jumped out to... Enshrining is good. Yeah, let's go with enshrining. And yeah, like the only way that you can, like, get away with words that abstract and metaphorical, I think, are, like, is that it has built up an expectation toward that, but also the fact that, like, the background changed and we just poisoned ourselves, and now, you know, are we in a drug state or a death state? I think we're about to find out. You stare at the inside of your mind for a while. When you look back, she's under your work table, sleeping, or maybe staring at her own mind. Eek! You shake her gently. She curls up, eyes closed, squeezing the leg of the table like a stuffed animal. But you feel energized. Yeah, getting a lot of foreshadowing from that dead body that's been under our work table this whole time. Weird psychic meat shit. Okay, come on, like, we have to pick that. That answer, like, is designed to stand out in that way. How does property work? Oh, man. Huh. Yeah. And then the game got real weird and meta right at the drug sequence. Okay. But you feel energized. Running through the garden, darkness, leaves, and the ripe surge of life crushed under your boots. You kick them off so you can suffer with the earth. You start talking to your dead friend. Yeah, amazing comedy this late in the game. It's really true. And particularly, like, considering how much heavier and heavier and heavier the tone of the piece has been getting, to just, like, pop you with that, it's really, really good. Good reversal. Yeah, Duende, I think we just had the same realization at the same time. Okay. This is the first time I've felt normal since I was a kid. Sorry I'm making this about me. I'm sorry I haven't been there for you. I'm sorry for everything. I am not gonna cry on stream. Oh my god. Okay. You trail away. The sky is spinning, a glowing vortex of radial star lines. You fall to the ground, arms sprawled behind you, writhing as the universe hypnotizes you. You feel the grass growing over your face, feel yourself sinking into the earth, soft, warm, like the roots are veins, red, brown, dark, fertile, rich, fecund, churning with life. Yeah, and a point about the comedy as well. Like, it is remarkable that the game literally gave us positive feelings with this nice, like, you know, background music with, like, this like, beautiful descriptions. We went from things being really horrific to, like, earthy and soft and you know, radial star lines, like, just beautiful language, as we're sort of drugged. You think about your long life of fear, about waking up as a husk tomorrow. You clutch at the grass. It twists and tears in your hands, like, and the dew feels like blood. Like being dragged out of a deep pit where you've lived so long in isolation that you no longer had any reference point. But now that you've seen the light and tasted clean air, you'd fight like a rabid animal to stay free. You look around and you can't see your dead friend anywhere. Draw a sigil of insight and fall asleep on the grass. It's that punch of comedy in a horror movie or tragedy. Something about the wild fluctuation makes it hit harder. It is true. It happened right before the like, and your friend is dead kind of realization reveal. Um, okay. I don't know what our sigil of insight looks like. Y'all will have to help me out a little bit. Uh, I'm feeling like a circle of some kind. Uh, yeah. Spiral eye. Yeah, that's a good one. Eye sun. Yeah, we have a sun already, so I'm gonna go with spiral eye. Uh, which I think we determined was our last sigil. Um, fell asleep on the grass. Okay. And here we are back there. A dead person is in the trees. Yep. Yeah, let's do some meditations, man. That hit me. That hit me pretty hard. Whew. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm like, oh, I take a literal breather right now. Okay, I'll do one more. Okay. All right. I'm gonna go. Yep. Dead person is not here. Sitting on her bed, watching her put on nail polish. Black. It glistens. Do you want your nails done? Always. Always. She paints which nail? Uh, yeah, and it's starting to feel very full circle, right? Because like we had, our 12 choices at the beginning. Has there been one clear her throughout this story? This person. There was not really a mention of like a friend from our past life before what you saw, Jeffrey. So there have been mentions of our parents for sure. There was a mention at the very beginning that our parents gave us a name, but we looked in a book and found we had another name. Sorry, alarm. But we found we had another name, and then there was kind of a letter from our parents that we were compelled to sort of like either tear up or put in our little chest there, but otherwise hasn't really been much mention of our past. So, yeah, let's go with the seventh. Oh, this is so good. Okay. And yeah, like this game just it does such interesting things with choices that don't systemically change things and really are just kind of like decorative aesthetic choices to symbolically convey a thing. And so, like, that screen is something that in design we would call mapping, uh, where there's a clear metaphor between this thing and the 10 fingers. And so each time you click one, like, it's, like, obviously, like, mapping onto nails. And, like, yeah, it's very cool. The ritual is soothing. She painted your nails a different color, green. You say, I was so worried when I saw you here. I know you hate these people. She returns the nail polish to her nightstand. It clicks against the glass. Time passes. We get over things. She looks tired. I'll see you tomorrow. I need to sleep and I'll miss you. Good night, Sedina. As you slide off the bed, your hip catches the nightstand, knocking her purse to the floor. She gets on her knees and quickly begins putting things back inside. A stick of mascara, an estroglyph, piece of salt candy. Is this the same friend? Yeah, I think the implication is that it is, yeah. Something that doesn't exist. And that this is like a flashback. We're sitting on her bed, so yeah, I think the implication is this is the before times. A non-existent knife is lying on the floor. Your skin tingles. When is that knife going to exist? Tomorrow. Please. I just wanted to spend time with you. Sedina. Stay in your room and don't interfere. Goodbye, Hayes. She closes the door. Is friend not dead? Is someone else dead? You sit in your room for an hour and then find a piece of paper and a pen. Write your note. Sedina. Oh, please don't. Are you insane? Let's go with I'm begging you not to do this. They will never forgive this, hurt you, torture you to death. They will never forgive this. Please understand, we can be happy far away from here. I can't live without you. You are so much better than those parasites. Oof. Yeah. Signed, your friend, the one who loved you a long time ago. Unsigned, because who else could it be? Ugh. None of those. Oh, I don't... I don't want this. All right. Got it. The palace is quiet and open and airy. Curtains lift languidly to reveal... Yeah, balconies like portals of moonlight. Draw the sigil of influencing this outcome. Oh, goodness. Goodness. Okay. What? I don't even know. Yeah, again, it's like it almost doesn't matter because it's just like a symbol to represent a moment, right? Like the meaning doesn't matter. Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah, I don't even know. Oh no, all layered on top of itself. Yeah, exactly. So I'm drawing like a heart with like a line through it. And then I'm just kind of adding ornamentation to that, I guess. Yeah. My mind went too irreverent. Yeah. Speaking of back to bed, enjoy your nights, everyone. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining Biostats. Yeah, such a kind of heavy note to leave on, but thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you and really great meeting you today. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of your night. Okay. So again, like I'll post it, and I think, yeah, there it is. And I think Nightbot is harassing you with the socials there, so this will be on Instagram if you want to follow that, but I'll probably cross-post it to Twitter and whatnot. Yeah. Okay. You wake up hours early with nausea eating its way out of your stomach. Get dressed and go to the throne room. Horrible fantasies steal your mind. Oh my god. Okay. The sound of her blood being lapped up by hounds, her screams worse than blood, longer lasting. Some trophy of her placed around the palace that you have to walk past every day for the rest of your life. Ooh, okay. Yeah, so each of these is kind of both referring to a thing that we have experienced with kind of this like gory twist with our friend. And yeah, and they're all also serving to really effectively make me feel guilty about the choices I made in each of those things of like, uh, you know, kind of taking, for example, like the screams that we heard with like the ritual, and it was presented in this very like matter of fact way, and our feelings as a player were sort of very acclimated to the horror of that moment. And now this is kind of coming back with relating it to our friend, and yeah, just like imbuing it with guilt, basically, or like the, you know, the trophy for the queen, and yeah. I mean, obviously, we want none of these. Like, there've been a lot of choices you don't want to make in this so far. She's standing at the center of the room, flanked by pillars of stone and light. An agent is listening to her. I brought a gift for the Empress, a token of loyalty from my coven. Dark Utah clothing, blue eyes, asymmetric brown hair, broken nose. Another agent enters the room, followed by the Empress, like a monstrous shadow. Sedina is standing very still. You try to catch her gaze. She meets your eyes for a moment before nodding and looking away. You start breathing again. She approaches the Empress with her hands open and empty. The knife suddenly exists. She places the knife inside the nearest agent, then pulls it out. Places. What an interesting word. Blood sprays across the floor, glittering in the sunlight. 2 seconds. She steps out of her shoes and darts toward the Empress. An agent stands in her way with a dagger. This is so, like, I'm sorry to interrupt the flow, but it is so effective at feeling like it has slowed down time by having us sort of click on these like seconds. She grabs the agent's wrist and bends it backwards, pinning them down like the dip in a dance, driving the blade into the underside of their chin. They open their mouth and a tongue of metal flicks through, drooling red. Sedina runs up to the Empress, bare feet pattering on the marble floor. The Empress rakes her hand across Sedina's abdomen. Skin and cloth comes away in her claws, so bloody you can't tell them apart. The knife clatters to the tile. Sedina grabs the Empress, fingers clutching at her skull, filling her eye sockets and nose. The Empress lifts Sedina into the air. You never understood how tall the Empress is until now, when a human is in her hands. She has Sedina like a child. She smashes Sedina into the wall. All of the air comes out of her, and some blood. Sedina slides to the floor. The doors to the throne room burst open, and 2 agents fill the room. You don't sleep. You have work to do. Okay. You sit at the work table. You have no materials. But you have materials. Blood, bone, skin. You find a vein and slide the needle in. Drops of blood ooze from your skin, climbing your hand like a glistening red glove. We gotta build an Iron Man suit and kill the Empress. And again, what if you choose not to do the work? I suspect that, yeah, it's a good question, actually. Gosh, Jeffrey, like, you're making me guess everything, right? Because, like, you have work to do absolutely was a condition statement. Like, that was a thing that we were so bored and looking for something to do that every time you have work to do came up, it was like, ooh, we have work to do. Let's go to the workshop, which is where all the work takes place. And yeah, it didn't even occur to me to not go to the workshop. Which I think in itself probably says something. Like, yeah, you take out another vial of melter. Okay, we've just got pain all the way down. What is there to say? If you know, you know. If you don't, nothing can show you. Draw a sigil of pain. Yeah, I don't know, like, my instinct is to draw like a lightning boltish sort of symbol, like maybe a like lightning bolts kind of spiraling in different directions. Yeah. So here's that one. Man, both arms running out of room here. There's an established sigil of torment in the literature. Like, what does that look like? Like, I'm like, You limp down the hall with the thing wrapped under a cloth. An agent rushes past. Through a window, you see the walls bristling with skull tears. The sovereign body has been threatened. To attack the sovereign body and fail is the same as wounding the sovereign body, because the body is not a body of flesh and bone, it is a body of power. Power is wounded by anything that refuses to be destroyed by it. The holding cells are down those stairs, in the smell of copper and rat. You take the thing into the torchlit depths where the agents stand guard. There would be screams if the thing did not eat screams. Whoa. From Planescape Torment, one of the best written games in history. Actually, yeah, I was considering playing that for a like a Friday series, but then PhD things happened. So at some point, though, I probably will play it and stream it. I think it would be fun. There would be death if the thing did not eat death. Walk past with eyes straight ahead. Sedina is bruised, eyes swollen, broken finger, fingernails bleeding, wrist hung in null hex manacles, spells in chastity. Superstition of the Skull Empire, ignorant of where a witch's true power lies. They will learn. I like that. Oh, the music! So good. Okay. So we're chased through the garden. Blood itching and burning. through the place where fire sleeps underground. She grabs at the buried tubes, claws at the seals, tears the caps free. Young Jellyfire bursts free, smoking the tips of her hair. After so little fermentation, they barely float, wafting across the grass like low, devouring clouds. You hear the sounds of the garden dying, but the pursuers dying. Both are very different, but become the same after a while. Sedina grabs your hand and pulls you toward the darkest part of the garden, where the foliage is high and tangled and the ground is swampy. A twinge of pain as you flash back to that drugged night in the garden, but you're no longer tied to these plants. They betrayed you by serving the forces of evil. The lake, black and rotten, is suddenly at your feet. Sedina pushes you behind her. Your feet sink into the cold mud. The sound of moth riders fills the air like saw blades. Something pink swarms through the underbrush, surges upward. You stare into the sky, into the blinding sun. Run or die, yep. Is it raining? And drop on your face. Another drop. Another. You look at the lake, and a face covered in red speckles looks back. A few seconds later, your face is completely crimson. Guts splash the lake and slap the dirt as princesses flit through the air, the teeth of their limbs slung and rippling. Moth riders crash, shrapnel shrieks, skulldugers leap through the trees, arrows fly, spears stabbed, princesses scream, pink goop melts human flesh. She yells something in your ear. You and her jump in the lake and start swimming for the distant shore. The water sucks at you, thick and silty and freezing. Your horizon, whirling wet bark, her surging shoulders, dead branches like crocodiles. Your throat is filling with dirt-tasting water. She sees you struggling and reaches for your hand. One way or another, the dream will come. We fight. A hotel as far as distance. Rain pours down, cracked blue clay, turning the road to mud and flooding the yard with demi-pond puddles. This is like a really cool background, by the way. Your friend the witch is in the common room, lingering over a glass of salt sugar citrus fluid, finger stuck in the crease of a book, watching rain run down the window pane. Everyone else is asleep. These long rainy days are for resting. You watch her from the staircase. It feels good to see her at peace. You know she feels the same way about you. You enter your room, take off your dress. The day rolls from your body like dissipating heat waves. Your wrinkles and folds exhale. A dead person is curled up in your hamper. I'm sorry, dead person, but you must leave. Why must I leave? Because you are dead or because I am alive? Ooh, I gotta choose I am alive, right? Oof. Okay. It really delivered. Yeah, I'm like, man. So yeah, there was like this kind of like throwaway line at the beginning about running our hands along the spine of a book, and like here we were. Yeah, I don't know, man. That I think that's probably my favorite Porpentine piece I've read so far. I don't know, like her stuff is really interesting and is really doing a lot. I like, as I mentioned yesterday, I could definitely feel the way I played and approached this game felt very influenced by my knowledge of her other work. So I would also kind of be curious how certain things came off to people who were less familiar with her work. But yeah, that, like, I think just in terms of writing and using sort of visual, like not just the backgrounds, but like kind of all of the auxiliary things around like the interaction with the piece. Um, Hi, Katamari Taco. So good to see you. Oh, I'm so glad to have you here. There's an Anthony Burgess style entire lexicon present in it. I'm not familiar. Can you say more about that? Um, yeah. Oh man, let's check out sigils. Ah, bummer. It would have been really cool to go to a Tumblr and see people's posted stuff. That's really, really cool. Um, Man, okay, so yeah, thoughts and reactions. Like I think this one certainly felt a lot more both detached and relatable to me than other stuff I have played by Porpentine. And I say detached in as much as like the writing obviously is pretty intense, and at times, we talked about how like it like borders on a little purple sometimes. Like certainly a lot of the descriptions are like pretty florid in their language. But I think it's used to such good effect, particularly in the contrasting places, that yeah, it was used really, really well. I'm really, really glad that we played this. Very cool. Really immersing the player in the horror and tedium made the end feel like a rescue. Yeah, it's really true. And like uh, the pacing of like the individual lexia or passages um, was really interesting. Sorry, I'm just kind of like processing while I'm talking, so this might come out a bit jumbled and incoherent, but I'll do my best. Um, the pacing really added to that. Like the chase scene felt faster, even though there's like more text on the screen, and the kind of like bullet time feeling almost of of Sedina attacking the queen. Um, yeah, I think it was just really, really cool. What's interesting is that the beginning of the story had a lot of, like, before we even started, the first couple of screens had a lot of like reassurances almost. There was the line of like, nothing you can do is wrong, or like it just felt like a lot of reassuring. And like in some ways the title kind of maybe feels like that too. It's like it got very heavy right there, kind of right before the last couple of scenes. And yeah, and then that was sort of the point where I was like, oh man, so the title though is With Those We Love Alive. What uh yeah, so it's kind of interesting, like that tension between something almost reassuring and the kind of like horror and monstrosity that you're feeling throughout it, and this sense of tension and dread. And uh like, yeah, as soon as she curled up under our workshop bench, I was like, oh no, this is no bueno. um yeah, the yeah, I don't know. It was really, really cool. I really enjoyed that. And so when did this piece come out? It's been a few years now. Yeah. Let me take a look. Um, let's see. Looks like 2014. Um, yeah, so I like this came out in an era where there was just so much good stuff coming out on Twine and good, really, really good stuff coming out from the interactive fiction community. And I really would love to know like where this of today is, you know? Like it really I don't know, like this piece I'm just like, oh, such a like renaissance of hypertext, like just yeah. The timeline is curious, but I'm not sure it'd be entirely necessary to try to understand what happened when. Yeah, I agree actually, and I think that that a lot of this has this and that's actually a really good point about the nail painting scene, which I hadn't considered. Um yeah, like it feels again like the author's like intentionally leaning into some of these ambiguities. So in some ways it feels like trying to answer them is maybe doing a disservice to maintaining that ambiguity or like thinking about it aesthetically. Since there was a dead person just chilling around us that made me feel like death ultimately wasn't that big of an issue in this world. No, it's a really good point, and that was a thing that like we became accustomed to very early. That like there are just monstrous creatures in this world, and everything is kind of made from bone and sinew and like this very sort of visceral imagery. We were involved in like consuming brains effectively, and then there was like this kind of ritualized hunt where there were death and screams everywhere. And so yeah, it was like death was very much just like we became very acclimated to it. And so then the points where it felt like our friend was in peril and might die, like reconnected us to like no death, like it's bad, right? And so that I think that was like a really great kind of like effective use, not just of storytelling but of language as well. Kitty Horror Show is also doing huge work in Twine and other engines. Awesome. I will definitely check that person out. um yeah Man, so much like I kind of have so many thoughts sort of spinning through my brain. And we had somebody had mentioned yesterday the rock paper shotgun article that they had read about this piece. So I went and checked that out yesterday, making sure it was spoiler free before I did. And uh, I really resonated with their experience as well of kind of like sort of internalizing the monotony of it and then sort of feeling like any choice you do kind of becomes reactive. Like at some point, you kind of just start waiting for the story to happen to you. Uh, and yeah, I definitely feel like we kind of hit that point for sure. That's the opposite of what I was thinking. It seemed like our friend might be dead. I was more like, oh, okay, that's cool, I guess. So what's interesting is I went on a roller coaster with that, Jeffrey, because I was like, oh no, our friend is dead. And then uh and then I also had that moment of like, oh, okay, well, if they're the dead person that's like around, then maybe that's cool. It's not such a big deal. And then I was like, oh no, it's a big deal. Like when we had the whole sort of like, suicide note feeling kind of thing. And like, and then I was like, oh no, so no, it is a big deal. Like I was like on a roller coaster there of yeah, interesting thing about that article. Porpentine went on to write for RPS for a little while. Yeah, the article actually mentions that in their kind of like disclosures. But what's interesting is I haven't read any of her RPS articles, I don't think. So that's a good call out, maybe something to check out for sure. Uh, yeah, definitely a piece that's doing a lot with contrast. Like, uh, yeah, and not in a kind of like parallelism way necessarily, though like there certainly was some of that. But just, yeah, it really, I think, was very effective at setting up a thing, setting up an expectation, subverting that expectation, subverting the subversion, but not in a way that feels too, I don't know, kind of like twisty in a mystery sort of way. Um, it did a really good job of like moving seamlessly between those things. And I'm not gonna lie, like Jeffrey, my mind was a little bit blown at the point where you pointed out, what if we just hadn't gone to the workshop? I'm like, it never occurred to me to not go to the workshop. Like that's just so obviously what we were supposed to do. Um, that yeah, like that was actually kind of a really impactful moment for me. So I'm really glad that I was playing this on stream because that's a moment like I would not have had that experience if you hadn't said that. So I'm really, really grateful for that. Um, so yeah, so I am gonna go ahead and call the stream there, I think. Thank you so much everybody for joining. Definitely go check out Porpentide's other stuff. Um, yeah, just I'm pretty blown away by all of that. And yeah, thank you guys so much for joining, especially new folks. And yeah, if this is something you're interested in seeing more of, I will do my best to try to stream a little bit more. Um, I mentioned yesterday that my PhD timeline is like suddenly a lot more condensed than I thought it was previously. So I am probably going to be streaming a lot over the next couple of weeks, maybe, and then probably not streaming again for a bit of a gap while I kind of wrap everything up and get my dissertation defense all prepared, and then hopefully after the defense, streaming a bit more again. So, but definitely hit me up on any of the social medias. Like I am very more online than I would like to be. So if there's something you would really like to see me play, yeah, hit me up and we'll see. So thank you all so much. I hope everybody has a great evening. And let me check really quick if there are friends online to raid. It looks like folks are just kind of signing off for the night. So I think I probably will just kind of call it there. And thank you all so much for joining. I will catch you guys later.